Hi Adi, thank you so much for coming in and today and talking with us. So I know you're from Applied Blockchain and we just love to learn a lot more about what you do. I do see you have unfortunately injured your arm today.
Huh.
How did that happen?
Yeah, look, I'm in a startup and we take risks sometimes. I took one too many here.
Took one too many,
Yes.
but good to see you're motivated.
Yeah.
But no, awesome. But let's go straight into it and talk about Applied Blockchain. So can you just tell us a little bit about your company and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So we build blockchain applications for clients. We've been in the space for 4 years. We've worked with many different types of clients, from banks to energy companies to automotive, aviation, the UN, lots of different types of clients and many startups as well.
Okay, excellent. And do you have a big team, or are you based here?
We have 15 people. We have 10 here in Canary Wharf at level 39. We started here, so it's been our home for most of that time. And we have a team in Portugal as well.
Okay, nice, excellent. So you are an international company.
Yes.
And so that's amazing. And so in terms of your clients and people that you work with, what are the main type of projects that come on? Because I know blockchain's a really big hot topic recently.
Yeah, so blockchain covers a broad range of different use cases and different industries, and we've really been pulled by our clients into lots of different areas through that. So that's why I think when I give you the sort of range of types of clients we work with, there's a fairly broad coverage. What we've done over the years is try to understand what's the commonality between them. What are they all asking for?
Good luck.
I think we've got some insight into that and probably some maybe unique views and unique perspective on what we think the clients need.
And I think just for people that might not know exactly what blockchain is, are you able to just give us a little bit? I know it's very complicated. Just a little bit of essence of how it works.
Yeah, I mean it's a technology that's already been taken in lots of different directions, and so already means lots of different things to different people. But at its core, it's about group security. So it's about, rather than one party or one person looking after data, it's about a group.
Mm-hmm.
And what it's really guarding is the history of activity that goes on in a ledger, in a database.
That's a really nice way to explain it.
So rather than looking after the data, making sure nobody can access it, what it really does is make sure nobody can change the history without the group agreeing to that. And the group securing something is more secure than just one party securing it. So that's really what it's about.
And what would you describe? Because I know when you hear blockchain, you hear DLT side by side.
Yep.
And do you have like a differentiation for the two as well, or?
I'm not a big fan of these of the sort of the different semantics, because for me it's about the technology.
Yeah.
And you have some people who've used focus on the cryptocurrency
element,
which for me is one of the use cases of the technology.
100%.
And then enterprises might use the technology differently.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's usually quite similar underlying technology or the same principles behind them. So for me, DLT is really a term that's been sanitized for enterprises who had concerns about cryptocurrency.
Exactly, they don't want to be associated with it.
Yeah, but it's a bit like saying, well, it's not a database because somebody's using it for maybe different uses that I'm not happy with. But it's still a database.
No, I really like that, because that's essentially the truth of it.
Right.
But so in terms of the blockchains that you create, then are you creating them, for example, like you're building them from scratch, or using like an already existing chain, like maybe Hyperledger or Ethereum, or how are you going about doing it?
Yeah, so we've always seen ourselves the next level up from the actual ledger. So we've never built our own ledger technology. We used Ethereum, different flavors of Ethereum, and Hyperledger Fabric, and we've done some work with Corda as well. More investigative work. Quite often companies will come to us and ask, what should we use? Can you give us an independent view on the platforms, and also which are the best because they're quite different, which are the best for the use case that they're looking at.
Nice.
So we do a lot of advising with clients and producing reports and that type of thing as well.
Excellent. Now, I'm not going to ask you which one is your favorite, because I know that's got a whole another hour-and-a-half conversation, because there is so many different options to go for. But I kind of wanted to just know, like, in terms of, like, you must have heard the term smart cities as well, and that's another big buzz term like blockchain going around nowadays.
Yes.
What are your opinions upon that?
I mean, obviously, it's a super exciting space to be in, and you know, we can already see in the places that we work and in the workplaces that we visit and our clients and so on, we see the smart cities technology coming through, and actually some of the benefits to being in these types of environments. I think it's very interesting for blockchain because, as I said, blockchain is a group technology. And in smart cities, you often have different platforms and different parties involved, and actually there is some advantage to being able to collaborate through a platform. So that's
yeah. I mean, I really believe, because I mean, blockchain introduces the concept of decentralization.
Yep.
And so no matter where you are in the world, we can kind of communicate with each other and work with each other as a collaborative and a community. So I think when it comes to smart cities, and I think a big thing is collaboration, and a smart city essentially is people-centered. So how can you really create a community around a city?
Yeah.
And I think blockchain, within the future might be playing a very integral part, even though we might not see it. Yes. I think it's always probably going to be running in the background somewhere.
Yep. So for us, there's two sets of technologies that we think about in this regard, actually, and we've had to split it for clients because people quite often associate everything with blockchain.
Yeah.
So blockchain is really about having a secure history of the activity that's occurred. So if we've got different parties providing services into a smart city, maybe different types of customers and users and individuals and stakeholders, they may be interested in some of the data being more strongly, the history being more strongly enforced. And it might be that they're also dealing with payments and with assets that are owned or being exchanged and so on. And that's where blockchain really plays a role.
Yep.
On top of that, we see privacy technologies. Because when you're sharing something or you're collaborating and you've got data moving around, things can get quite sensitive. And it's users' personal data on the one hand, and their rights around that, and perhaps perception of products when they're recording all sorts and sharing all sorts of activity about individuals. And on the other hand, there's also corporate sensitivity. So companies have data and they see the data as that being their asset, and they're not necessarily too happy to share that or for their competitors or others to see or to be exposed to their data.
I really love that you're talking about this, and I really wanted to ask you this question, because I know you've done and dabbled a little bit with zero-knowledge proof, and just kind of want to get an update of like what you think and how, do you think it's realistic that it can happen and can work?
Yep. So this is an area that we're really doing a lot of work in right now. And as I said, people come to us and they say, we want to build this with blockchain because, and quite often it's because they want to safeguard data and data privacy. So actually, that's not what blockchain is.
Yep.
If you've got a blockchain and you're using the blockchain to secure historical transactions, then you can overlay cryptographic technologies like zero-knowledge proofs to keep the activity on the blockchain more private.
Yep.
You can also do that without blockchain. Right? So you may have an environment where you're not interested in necessarily using a blockchain to additionally secure the history of the transactions, but you want to be able to exchange data or do things with data in a safer way that doesn't expose data to the other parties.
Exactly.
And so that's an area that we're really focused on now.
I think it's a super interesting one as well, because I think, as you say, a lot of, especially corporations, the ones that will probably be the forefront of using blockchain technology, that's one of their main interests. It's like, okay, how can we then authorize a transaction and know that whoever we're dealing with is saying what they're saying, but at the same way protect that information from any third parties that they might not want to see it.
So I'll give you an example. We're working with companies where we can, with zero-knowledge proofs, for example, we can prove that activity has happened, that it's been compliant in a certain way or within a certain geofence, without necessarily giving away the underlying data and the underlying details.
Yes.
And we've got this balance today going on where everybody's trying to grab as much data as they can, even if they don't necessarily know what to do with it yet.
Exactly.
But on the other hand, we've got regulation and privacy concerns and so on.
GDPR is a big one
and GDPR, of course. And so what we're seeing now, what we predict actually is that this data won't be moving around so freely in the future, but companies will still want to be able to do the things that they can do today when that data does move around. And cryptography and zero-knowledge type technologies are going to enable that.
I'm going to ask you a very, very difficult question.
Yeah.
Can you simply define zero-knowledge proof, or in your best way? Because it is such a complicated...
Yeah. So first of all, I would put the whole. What I'd say as a whole is cryptography is advancing, right?
Yes.
So whereas cryptography up until quite recently was really mostly about encrypting data. So I'm sending some data to you, and I can use this technology to keep it private.
Yeah.
Or I can digitally sign something, so you know it's come from me. We're going way beyond that, to the point where I can maybe send you a proof of data that I've got, and you can validate that proof and understand that I've got that data, and that data might have some properties, and I can prove those to you, but you'll never see the data.
Yeah.
Right? That's an example of zero-knowledge proof. Other things that we're able to do now is do things in a group or on encrypted data. So if people don't want to share their data between them, we can actually do some processing of data without it being revealed. So that for me is quite revolutionary.
No, 100%, I agree. And it's interesting because I always think of, I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, because I've never actually validated this, but like the way I thought of zero-knowledge proof would be like going into a grocery store where you just buy a bottle of milk, for example. You don't know exactly what type of bottle of milk it is, but it just says milk. And it's kind of verifying that the transaction has been made, but it doesn't go into the specifics, if that makes sense.
It could be more than that. For example, you want to know that milk has only been past hands of certified companies that have some level of quality assurance with them, or the temperature of the milk has never gone above a certain threshold, or it's only passed through a certain region geographically and it's not come from a different region. We could prove those things without showing who are the suppliers behind the supply chain, because that might be commercially sensitive.
Yeah, and you always have that like guarantee that this has gone through the right routes.
Correct.
I think that's absolutely excellent. So I know we've kind of touched base and we've kind of gone off a little on tangent, but then going back to solutions and maybe for smart cities and maybe for local governments, how do you think the applied blockchain can actually help with a lot of these different challenges?
So what we started doing, we started looking at companies that deal with location data, for example, like telecoms companies, and working with them to see how we can deliver analytics on an area. So for example, show aggregate data, this amount of people have been in this area, this particular pathway, for example, this particular road has had this level of traffic at this time of day, and so on, things like that, and actually prove that that's true and that we have underlying data to back it, but without actually revealing the data.
I love that.
So you can show aggregate data, and you can manage thresholds, and you can potentially have different buildings, for example, that hold data belonging to different companies, and bring that together without actually exposing and physically bringing together any of the data. But you can actually start to produce aggregates and show that data across the board is within certain thresholds and so on.
I presume a lot of that comes down, is it the right type of data? Because a lot of people, and I think as rightly as you said before, a lot of people are collecting data, but so much of it that is quite useless. They don't really know what to do with it. And I think with this is your main focus is the data that you're collecting. So
we think that data is not going to move around so much in the future.
Okay.
We think that you'll be able to hold on to your data, and this is really what we're building now. You'll be able to hold on to your data, not have to share it with anyone, but still be able to prove and generate analytics between you, almost as you do today. So without a central party or one party having to collect everybody's data.
So like in summary, it's like a digital ID, but coated with zero-knowledge proof. So that you can kind of exchange information of yourself or of your, let's just say, what you've been doing, but then proving, well, just by proving that with zero-knowledge proof you've done these actions or you're certified in a certain way. So it's kind of like a digital identity coated with zero-knowledge proof.
For an individual, yes. So an individual would have their data. They wouldn't necessarily even show it to anyone, but everybody can get what they need from it. And the same thing with a company. So a company holds onto its own data, and really companies are built on their value is many of these companies is the information that they have and that they don't share with the world. And so companies will continue to hold on to their data, but be able to collaborate and produce market data and analytics and so on without actually having to share their data.
And that sounds like a really interesting future. How long do you think we are away from that, do you think? And
so I think a bit like blockchain, a bit like blockchain 4 years ago when we first started, not many people really know about this yet, and,
Yeah.
and there's definitely an education process to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And also in a similar way to blockchain itself, the technology is still very early, not many standards, and not particularly scalable.
Yeah.
So we can already use it for use cases that don't require vast quantities of data. Yeah,
Do you
and we
think
already are doing that.
Do you think like local governments and just governments in general can really benefit from blockchain, and if so, how?
Absolutely. So we think that because it's a collaborative database, then and it's has this extra security associated with it, then I think if you want assurance about what is being done in a particular ecosystem, or you want an aggregate view of the activity in that ecosystem, then you can do that with a combination of a blockchain plus zero knowledge proofs. So the blockchain allows the party to transact and do activity privately, but the government might want to have assurance that if a company says this is the level of activity it's got, then that's true, or if it's within a certain threshold because that's the regulation, then they're working within that threshold, and so on.
Nice, perfect.
Yeah.
And just to like, because we're almost at the end now, do you have any like people that you've worked with or solutions that you've created that can kind of validate or kind of support some of the stuff that you've kind of some of the things that we've basically touched upon? So I know it's still very early.
It's early days, and
but if there's any examples that you actually also can talk about, of course, that you think that you created something and you're like, this actually worked quite well for someone. Yeah,
it's still early days, and we're still stealth mode with these clients.
Okay, so
but watch out for the announcements.
Okay, looking forward to it. Anything in 2020 that we can look forward to?
Absolutely.
Okay, looking forward to it. Thanks so much, Adi. It's been an absolute pleasure having you, and I've learned a lot, and I think a lot of people will be very interested to see where blockchain is going and how it can really be implemented in smart cities. But looking forward to seeing and hearing more from you in applied blockchain. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.